How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final scene of
Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum braucht er was zum Essen, bitte sehr. Es macht ihn ein Geschwätz nicht satt, das schafft kein Essen her.
Rum links, zwei, drei, rum links, zwei, drei, wo dein Platz genossen ist. Weil ich ein in die Arbeit einheits komm, weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum hat der Stiefel im Gesicht nicht gern. Er will unter sich keinen Sklaven sehen und über sich keinen Herrn.
Rum links, zwei, drei, rum links, zwei, drei, wo dein Platz genossen ist. Weil ich ein in die Arbeiter einheits komm, weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Und weil der Prolet ein Prolet ist, drum wird ihn kein anderer befreien. Es kann die Befreiung der Arbeiter nur das Werk der Arbeiter sein.
Rum links, zwei, drei, rum links, zwei, drei, wo dein Platz genossen ist. Weil ich ein in die Arbeiter einheits komm, weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Carlin gets it.
What up, guys? Welcome to Socialism Saturday. Здравствуйте! Nostrovia. Welcome to Socialism Saturday. Socialism Saturday is where we watch the real far left. We don't watch the Democrats. The Democrats are not communists. We don't watch the progressives or the so-called liberals. The progressives and liberals are not communists. We watch the real radical revolutionary far left, the people who are pushing every crazy idea in the world today. And Blue Jay Groiper, I gotta give a shout out to Blue Jay Groiper because Blue Jay Groiper power chatted me in a super chat a couple minutes ago, and he says, "Unblock me, please," on X. And I did. We're back, Blue Jay Groiper. You started us off with our super chat goal well today. And because we did not hit the goal yesterday, I upped our Socialism Saturday super chat goal a little bit, guys. As a reminder, the super chats do help fund the work I'm doing. It allows me to stream with you guys for hours and hours and hours every day, showing you the real radical revolutionary far left. And I do like to front load the super chat. So if you feel so inclined to help us get to our $150 goal today, I've got a great show planned for you. We are going inside the Socialism 2024 conference. We've been working on this project for a couple other days this week. I found out through my good friend Dan Kleinman that the Socialism 2024 conference, which we streamed a bunch of back in September when it was live, but we didn't have access to all the recordings of the Socialism conference back when it was live because they were only live streaming limited sessions. And so now we have access to all the recordings, and there are a lot of things that I want to listen to. So we watched a very disturbing presentation yesterday about abortion, in which we were given a very, very, very detailed description of how to self-manage your abortion and what happens when you self-manage your abortion and how you can obfuscate state laws around abortion. And if you missed that, the clip is currently on the channel. I do also have it on the Substack right over here, Leftist Caught Teaching How to Bypass State Laws on Abortion. That is over at Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Yeah, the abortion thing was insane. If you listen, and I've talked about this before, we don't cover reproductive justice that much just because it is really dark. And I've been undercover with them at reproductive justice events, and it's even worse in person than it is online. But we do need to see these things because the reproductive justice movement is almost entirely run by the radical revolutionary far left. The Shout Your Abortion people are not Democrats. They are not progressives. They are not liberals. They are radical revolutionary socialists. Abortion plays into their ideology because it is about targeting the elimination of the gender binary by liberating women from being part of the gender binary. It's also about eliminating the nuclear family. And don't be fooled. People who are Shout Your Abortion people do have kids. They don't just abort all their babies. This is not like Tim Pool. We don't do this boneheaded stuff where we say they're just going to abort all their kids and they're going to die out. No. They have kids. They have kids when they're ready to have kids. Anyway, if you missed the abortion thing yesterday, I definitely recommend checking it out. It was disturbing. And you can find that on yesterday's stream. But we are going to be continuing today. And I've got more presentations pulled up. We're gonna hopefully go through a couple presentations tonight. But it all depends because there might be a lot to break down in the first presentation. And so depending on how long it goes, we might only do one. I would like to do at least two. So I definitely want to do this What is Gay Communism presentation. And just because I think it's going to look good, and we'll talk a little bit about the description of all that, about kind of sexual liberation, blah, 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 blah. This probably has to do with queer Marxism. So we're going to do that one. I have some other options pulled up here. We have What Must Be Done Defeating Project 2025 and the Neo-Fascist Right. Of course, that's going to be very entertaining for us. We've got another abortion presentation. This is not to be confused with the last abortion presentation we watched because that is a completely different abortion presentation. And then we've got Capitalism's New Attacks on Public Education. So we do have some good options tonight, but I do want to start with this gay communism one to get a sense of that. I've never heard to this referred as gay communism before, and so I'm going to be looking for a specific definition because, as you know, I do dig a lot into the queer Marxists, but gay is not the same as queer. So what do they mean when they say gay communism? Are they trying to change the language again? We're going to find out. And so that is what we are going to be doing today for Socialism Saturday. Are there any new people in the Socialism Saturday chat? We're still having people. I'm getting something happened to the YouTube algorithm. I need everyone right now to stop whatever you're doing, and I need everyone to mount the like button for me, because there should be more people here. And this is a problem I've had for the last couple days on YouTube. I don't know what's going on YouTube, but it is very, very important that people mount the like button and, do all that stuff on the video, because something is going on with the YouTube algorithm where people aren't getting notifications. There's usually significantly more people here. And this has not just been a problem one day. This has not been a problem like 3 days in a row. So something got changed on YouTube. I am perpetually shadow banned on YouTube. It's the way it goes. I hear about this all the time. People get unsubscribed from my channel when they didn't unsubscribe from my channel. People don't get notifications when I'm doing streams. This is why I do them at the same time every day. So no one can say they didn't know, because it's a consistent same time every day and all that stuff. So please do your part. Mount the like button for me so we can get some more people here. We'll give it a little time before we actually get into the stream, and I appreciate that. Now, while we're waiting for people to come in, I just want to show people this. Did you guys see this on Twitter? I want to see if my audience is smarter than the average Fox News audience. Let me just make this a little bit smaller. It makes it a little bit more readable. I just want to see if my audience is smarter than Fox News. This is a real story on Fox News' website. Went up the other day. Science Museum claims Legos push a heteronormative agenda in LGBTQ tour. The Seeing Things Queerly tour argues the language of Legos excludes other identities by describing the connection of male and female parts as mating. Now, we're going to read this article, and we're going to find out what Fox News has to say about this. But I just want to ask my chat to prove that you guys are indeed the smartest people on the internet when it comes to the far left. What does all that mean? What does that mean? Let me know in the chat. If you're new here and you don't know what that means yet, don't worry. We're going to teach you what that means. That's the purpose of what this is. Suzanne, how are you feeling today? Hopefully better. I feel a little bit better, Suzanne. I'm still a little bit under the weather. My body is still a little bit achy. I do have a cold, but my nose has stopped running. And so, you know what? That's progress. I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. So what does this mean? Science Museum claims Legos push a heteronormative agenda in the LGBTQ tour. It means that Legos are a product of capitalist creation. Well, more than that, bot. That's not a very good answer. Trendolin. Legos uphold the gender binary. What does that mean? Legos uphold capitalism. What does that mean? Don't disappoint me, guys. Do not give throwaway answers just to say you gave an answer. Actually give me a good, meaty answer. You guys know the answer to this. I don't want to have to beg for you guys to answer the question. I know you know the answer to this. Legos enforce the gender binary. Why is that heteronormative? What does that have to do with the title of the article? That means that gender is a construct created by capitalism to perpetually feed itself. What does that mean? Please, everyone just stop. I need everyone to stop typing right now. I need you to listen to what I am asking you. If you were to have to explain this to a normal person who doesn't know what this means, are you going to come in and say, this means that gender is a construct created by capitalism to perpetually feed its workers? I would really hope that you don't say that, because the person you're talking to is going to have no fucking clue what you just said. So we need to all back up and realize what we're doing here. The purpose of what we do on Socialism Saturday is to learn the language of the left so that we can teach other people. I need everyone to stop trying to be the smartest person in the room and just repeating my talking points back to me. And I need you to explain what that headline means. Please. This is already going very badly. This is already going badly. Let me go back. It means Suzanne, what does that have to do with socialism? We might not even, at this rate, I'm going to be honest, we might not even have a stream tonight. If you guys can't answer this question, I did this article at the front because I was like, we're going to make a great clip of this and my chat is going to be able to explain it to everyone and I'm not even going to have to say anything and they're going to know what it is and I'm going to be able to put that clip on the Substack and I'm going to be able to put that this clip out there to say, look how smart my chat is, and now my chat is retarded. You guys are retarded at the beginning of the stream. We may just cancel the whole fucking stream if you guys can't explain this. I swear. I'm being serious about that. The male and female connection points to support of the gender binary. What the fuck does that mean, and what does that have to do with the title of this article? It promotes the concept of a gender binary. What the fuck does that mean, and what does that have to do with the title of the article? Queer is a far-left political ideology. They want to abolish it by the gender binary because they think capitalism created it. It does not say heterosexuality, Reagan. Come on. You just rolled your eyes? Well, can you explain it, though? Do you think rolling your eyes is going to defeat the far left? Do you think that rolling your eyes is the correct answer to the problem? Because I don't. I think that's the loser conservative answer to the problem. Lego family figures, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. The term male and female electric connectors have been, yeah, that has nothing to do with the question I'm asking. We are on track for a short stream tonight, I'll tell you what. Because if this is what I'm going to get tonight, I'll just go listen to this stuff on my own. I don't have to do this live on the internet. I really don't. They're saying Legos are heteronormative because they only have male and female because they only are about male and female mating. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. What did that take? 5 minutes of me berating the chat for us to get somewhere? It's almost like you guys always knew the answer and you just weren't thinking before you typed into the chat. If you're new, you are excused from this. Let's see if Groove Dragon has any history on this channel at all. I'm gonna bet not. I'm gonna bet not. Where is Groove Dragon in the chat? Did someone ban him? I don't even see this in the chat anymore. Well, it doesn't matter. He just got blocked anyway. We don't allow attitudes like that here. Okay, Lego's part using the term mating enforces the nope, wrong. It upholds straightness as the norm, and nope, that's not correct. All right. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? You just got put in a timeout. No more talking. No talking from you. More listening. All right. There so far has been 0 sufficient answers for the question that I'm asking. It is not because there are not people in the chat who know the answer. I know for a fact that there are people in the chat who know the answer. I don't know why. This is like pulling teeth, but I'm giving you guys, you have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to give me an acceptable answer for this question. What does this mean? If you do not give me an acceptable answer for this question, we are cutting the stream completely off tonight and I'm going to go do something else. Because this is what happened. This is what I have to do when you guys aren't fucking listening. Socialists believe that capitalism is supported by the nuclear family. Nope. That's not answering the question I'm asking. Do you see the term nuclear family in this at all? If you, I'm going to ask the question one more fucking time, and this is the last chance I'm going to have to ask the question, and then you have 5 minutes to answer it. What if you were explaining to a normal person what this headline means? What would you say? To a normal person, what would you say? I'm not displaying any answer that is not adequately answering the question. What do you say if you are explaining what this headline means to a normal person? You have 4 minutes. I can go do other things tonight, guys. I really can. I have a shit ton of work I need to do. If you guys aren't showing up, then I don't have to show up either. The Lego parts are... Nope. I don't know why we're even talking about the mating process. Waiting. I'm not seeing any answers in the chat that would explain this to a normal person. I have repeatedly given you guys the tools to answer this question. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. You have 3 minutes. I don't want to cut this stream short, but I'm not gonna. This is not something I am not going to know. I know exactly how much I have streamed about queer Marxism. I know exactly how many times I have explained this concept. I know exactly how many times I've broken down this concept. I know exactly how many times we've been over and over and over and over and over this. We had a 2-hour, we have an entire fucking book club about this one topic. We talk about this ad nauseum. We talk about this more than anyone else on the internet. There is no excuse for the people that are in the chat right now not being able to explain what this means. I'm still not seeing any acceptable answers. I'm sorry. I'm not being difficult. You guys aren't. What you're doing is you are explaining it using the buzzwords. Okay. Stop fucking typing. What you are doing is you are explaining it using the buzzwords that you hear me say, which means you don't actually understand it. I'm not asking you to use the same buzzwords that I use. I am asking you to explain this headline to a normal fucking person who doesn't know what this means. Well, this is getting closer. When Legos have male and female parts that promote a binary of gender, socialists think the binary upholds normative structures created by capitalism. It's not completely there. I'm not completely happy with this, but it's the closest answer so far. You have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes. This has nothing to do with heterosexuality. Nothing to do with it at all. You have 2 minutes. 1 minute now. Nope, you guys are making it way too complicated. You're not. You are still. No, I've been berating you for 20 fucking minutes. You are still not actually answering the question that I'm asking you, which means that you're not listening to me. Which is a fucking problem if you want me to spend hours streaming this shit on the internet. You have 1 minute. Any last attempts before I end the stream? You have 1 minute. Well, that would get you banned on my channel, Green-Eyed Lady. So if you think that this is the right time to fucking joke, that is not a good decision on your part. I have told you over and over and over again, I don't want this bullshit. And you still keep doing it. So you're lucky I'm not banning you entirely right now. Seeing things queerly is the key. Queer is all about disrupting things that are Here we go. This is starting to move in the right direction. The male-female connection is considered normal in the capitalist system. The heteronormative is anti-queer. Not completely great. I'm extending the time by 3 minutes. You now have 2 examples of things that are kind of okay. You have Reagan's answer, which is kind of okay. Not great, but better than almost anything else. And Green-Eyed Lady, you're getting put in a timeout, honestly. Actually, I'm going to extend Green-Eyed Lady's timeout for 24 hours. Because that was some bullshit right there. We'll fix that in a second. You have Chad's answer, which is starting to get better. Queer means things that go against the norm. Gender. Here. Thank you! Reagan got the answer. Queer means things that go against the norm. Heteronormative means The normal. What does the normal mean? The things that uphold capitalism. Gender, male, female, is a normative construct created by capitalism. Socialists want to abolish capitalism. Does everyone understand? That is a you problem. That is not a me problem. You are not going to get sympathy in my chat for having a disability and then whining in my chat, specifically when whining is against the rules. So I'm very sorry for your disability, but you don't get special fucking treatment here. If you want to impress me, what you need to do is listen. If you don't want to listen, or if you don't like my voice, or if you don't like my tone, or if it's just too painful, go to the Daily fucking Wire. They'll be very nice to you. I promise. I think I would try to explain what heteronormativity means first and how queer is against normativity. Well, Rottweiler, you could just do it. You don't have to explain the process. Just do it. I didn't ask you to explain the process. And I asked you to explain this to a normal person. It's not actually. You're now getting put in a 24-hour timeout. If you want to stay here, your job is to listen. It is not to shit. Two ladies, I think I accidentally just hid you on the channel. Don't worry, I'm going to undo that. I didn't mean to do that. Two ladies, that was my bad. I meant to put Steven in a 24-hour timeout. Hang on. We're already off for a banner start today. We're putting Steven in a 24-hour timeout. We're going back and putting Green-Eyed Lady in a 24-hour timeout. Green-Eyed Lady is very lucky that she's not getting banned today. Green-Eyed Lady ever does this again, she will be getting banned. There we go. There we go. Do people understand why we just went through this exercise? Do people understand why we just went through this exercise? If you understand why we went through this exercise, I would like you to explain to me why we just went through this exercise. How many more times are we going to need to go through an exercise like this? Yes. Legos promote being normal by being normal. Queerness is any... See, that's actually a great answer, Vince. That is a great answer. Yes. Yes, I understand. I need to get better at explaining it to normal people without being so convoluted. No, what you guys need to do is stop just repeating my talking points. I explain this to you guys in a million different ways, and you always come back just throwing my talking points at me because you want to be in the first in the chat to get an answer. We need to learn how to teach people. If we cannot teach people, then we are fucked. And we keep coming into this where I ask you guys, this is a very simple question. This should be a very, 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 very simple question for this chat. When I saw this on Twitter, I was like, holy shit, that's like obvious that they would do that. If we can't explain it, then no one can explain it. And I refuse to believe that I have a bunch of retards in my chat. You guys have heard me talk about this, some of you, for years. We talk about this multiple times a week. If you cannot explain it simply and you show up all the time, then that means I am a really fucking shitty teacher and I should just go do other shit instead of wasting my time on the internet. Because it is a waste of my time when I show up every single week for free to teach this stuff for hours every week. And then the people that are showing up are not listening and are not following along. So either I'm a really shitty teacher or you guys are all retarded. Maybe it's both. I don't know, but I thought better of you. Thank you, Reagan. Thank you, Carl. And also, thank you, two ladies. I apologize for accidentally hiding you. That really was an accident. That was my mistake. I really can just go do other stuff, guys. I really can. I don't have to be here for hours every day. Yeah, to prove that we're listening. That is exactly right. We need to be able to explain to normies without being overly intellectualized in our answers. That is exactly right. I believe I understand we need to teach ourselves how to teach this to other people who may not know this. That's exactly right. We need to get used to talking about it with normal people. That's exactly right. Because we need to be able to explain it to normies. Because we are in an insular world with each other and we know the buzzwords, but normal people don't. That's exactly right. If you just throw the buzzwords at people, they're going to look at you like you have 3 heads. Because you only understand something when you're able to clearly explain it to others. That's right. We are the translators for normal people who don't understand it. That's exactly right. The point of the exercise is to show that breaking down concepts and buzzwords into ways that allow us to communicate the ideas to normies and rubes. I think that is exactly right. We have to learn this inside and out so we can explain it to the common person. Exactly. You're in a teacher college so that you don't turn out like James Lindsay. Exactly. Well, that exercise didn't go how I thought it was going to. At all. In any way. I'm a bit disappointed about that because I was going to use that clip to explain that to people on my Substack, and now I'm going to have to write a whole article, and I'm going to have to do it all over again because people didn't show up. And that's the way it goes, I guess. That's the way it goes. That's one of my big problems is the buzzwords don't mean anything. Well, then what you need to do, Nikki, is you need to ask questions, okay? If you are not going to, if you listen, if you don't understand what any of this stuff means, then it is incumbent upon you to speak up in the chat and ask the question. If you don't speak up and ask questions, we don't have the ability to stop and break it down for you because we assume you already know. So that's why it's really important, guys. I know I just yelled at people for about half an hour. We wasted half a fucking hour on that. That is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. But if you don't ask questions, we don't know that you're confused. Okay? So that's your job. Your job is to ask questions if you don't understand something. If you sit there and you don't ask a question, I'm not a mind reader, bro. I can't see through the fucking computer. You have to let us know what you need. We will provide you with answers. We will break stuff down for you. We will help you understand it. But if you don't speak up, that's on you. It's not on us. That's on you. Vince, you actually did a great job. You did a great job. And listen, Reagan, Chad, like, there were a lot of people who were waffling around the answer. My frustration is when you are not listening to the question that I'm asking. You are answering a completely different question than what I'm actually asking you to do. And I've been specific about it multiple times. Okay? So, is everyone ready to actually get into the content of our show? Now that I've berated you all for half an hour, now that we've wasted a whole bunch of time where we could have been watching socialism, is everyone ready to get into the concept of the subject of the show? So if I look at 2 Lego bricks and think of them mating, then no, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. But welcome. Perhaps you'll learn. You can tune into the Substack article that I'm going to have to write about this to make up for the fact that my chat utterly failed me in this regard. Okay, we are going to get into the show, guys. We are going to be listening tonight to, and we don't have the video, we only have the audio, so we're just going to have to deal with that. We're going to be listening tonight to a presentation called What is Gay Communism? We may listen to something else too, although the fact that I just wasted a half hour on this seems to make that unlikely, but we will minimally listen to this presentation. The description of this presentation is, the concept of gay communism is greater circulation now than when it was first coined by Italian Marxist Mario Mille in the context of the sexual liberation struggle in the post-operationalist milieu he was active in. What does it mean? What traditions does it partake in? And why do socialists and communists need to understand its challenge to fight the resurgent right? This was given at the Socialism 2024 conference in September. We have just gotten access to the recordings of these, and so we are going back and listening to some of the sessions that we missed back in September. That's what we'll be listening to tonight. Now, as a reminder, we do have rules of our chat. The first rule, and I do ask everyone to abide by this, and if you don't, you're going to find yourself put in a timeout or banned very, very, very quickly. The first rule of the chat is that we do take this seriously, and we are a research group. It is okay to have fun in the chat. It is okay to make jokes here and there. I do want people to make sure that if you are saying things in the chat, that it remain relevant to the content that we are actually watching. So I should not see chats that are not relevant to the content that we're watching. If you want to talk about other things, you need to go somewhere else. You don't have to stay here, but you are not bringing bullshit into my chat, okay? So make it sure it's relevant to what we're watching. I want you to think of yourself as being in a classroom. You are in a classroom, okay? You are in my classroom. I am the teacher of the class. You are the students of the class. If you are in my classroom, your job here is to show up and learn. That is the goal of what we're doing. And so if there's disruptions in the chat, if people are being dicks, if people are doing things I've asked people not to do, they're going to be removed, and you done broke the rules. You wouldn't do it in real life if you were sitting in the classroom. You're not going to do it here. We have a group of people who do watch this stuff regularly, all the time, like for hours and hours and hours a week, to be able to find good recordings, good clips to show other people what's going on. Do not disrespect the work that we are all doing, and particularly, and this might be a little bit selfish, do not disrespect me, because I put a lot of time into this, and if you're going to disrespect me, you can just go somewhere else. Number 2, don't be a dick. What does that mean? Don't insult me. Don't insult other people in the chat. If you don't insult me, I promise you, you're not going to have many issues, okay? But if you start coming at me, you will regret the very fucking day that you were born. This is my chat. This is my YouTube channel. This is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. I am the queen fascist dictator of my own chat. I make the rules. You do not. And if you do not abide by my rules, you will not be allowed to stay. Number 3, no whining. I don't want to hear about it. I am not your mommy. I am not your daddy. I am a woman that teaches socialism on the internet, and I don't want to hear you complaining. I don't have kids. I don't have kids for a reason. I don't want to hear it in my real life. I certainly don't want to hear it in my online life. So if you have feelings about it, you need to go get them coddled somewhere else. God knows people don't care about my feelings all that much, so by extension, I'm just not going to care about yours. I am very, very sorry. Number 4, I need everyone to listen. Listening is key to what we are doing. If you are not going to listen, you are not going to learn anything, okay? You do not know everything about the left. I know that because I know more about the left than almost anyone on the planet. And I don't know everything about the left. So if I don't know everything about the left, then you don't know everything about the left. And the goal here is to listen to the actual socialists, the actual communists, the ones that are organizing in the real world today, to find out what they believe, find out what their language is, think about their strategies, think about ways we can counter them. But this is not a place to own the libs. This is not a place to dunk and feel morally superior. Please don't debunk what they are saying. I promise you are not going to have any debunks that we have not heard a million times before, and they make no difference. And if you try to debunk to an actual socialist or communist, they're going to laugh in your face because it makes no difference at all. Yes, we know their ideas are crazy. No, none of us are actual communists. Only retards think that. The goal of this is to listen to the left and to listen to what is being said and to understand them from their perspective, because if you do not understand your enemy, you can never defeat them. 5 rules will result in you getting banned, and I'm already in a pissy mood tonight, so please don't make me ban you, but I will if you disrespect me, you disrespect this chat, you disrespect what we're doing here, all right? So those are our rules. If you have any questions, please let me know. This is not like normal chats on the internet, and I hope everyone gets the message of that. Dr. K respects you if you respect her in her chat. I've said stupid stuff before. She's never made me feel bad. We are all learning here. Yeah, it's okay to be wrong in an answer. What's not okay is not listening, not respecting the time and energy that's being put in, not respecting the effort that's being put in. So, we are adults here. We are not children. Most places on the internet are children. We are fully grown adults. 2 ladies, donations needed to help Carlin to give us another show. Show us some love, fam. Hey, 2 ladies, I really do appreciate that. Let's get that super chat banner back up. If you guys feel like donating, we do have a $150 goal tonight to make up for the fact that we didn't meet the goal last night. So if you guys want to support the work I'm doing and keep me streaming, I would really appreciate it. And yes, don't be belligerent if you're wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to be an asshole. All right? Postcard, you resubscribed. I really do appreciate that. All right, guys, we are now getting into the main show of the day. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, but Trendlin, you send me random shit in the mail that I like, and so I allow you to get away with more than I probably should, but that's because you bribe me by sending me random packages in the mail every once in a while. So I appreciate that. Andre, I love how mind programmer Carlin tests her students via asking questions. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Let's see. Look, we're already up to $42. Look at us. We might actually meet this goal tonight. All right. Guys, let's dig into this presentation. If you have questions in the chat, please ask them, and we will see what's what. Okay, let's get this party started.
Justice by any means necessary.
This program is brought to you by Haymarket Books as part of the Socialism 2024 program. You can hear more recordings from the conference by subscribing to the Socialism Conference podcast feed. Many video recordings are also available at socialismconference.org. If you enjoy these recordings, you should join us at Socialism 2025, which will be held in Chicago next summer, July 3rd through the 6th, 2025. If you are ready to put ideas into action and get organized with others from across the country and the world, make a plan with your organization and your friends to come to the Socialism Conference.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a fabulous conference. We're in the home stretch, so woo! I hope you've met as many cool humans as I have, and that you've made some connections with people doing work both where you're at and in maybe other places, and that you've learned.
Hey, did I just get a power chat? I did. Thank you, Kevin Michael, for the power chat. I appreciate it.
Some amazing new things. I know this session will be similar. We will all be in community together. We'll all learn together. It's great sharing a space with you. Welcome to Save the Library, Save the World.
Oh, wait, that's not the right session. Again, different session.
And your friends
Hang
to
on,
come to the
that's not
social
right.
And I'm
There
just
we
gonna
go,
give
that's
us
and
right.
your friends to come to the
I don't know
Socialism
why I did that.
Conference.
Sorry about that.
I'm Tracy Rosenthal. I'm really happy to be here
Yeah, it was.
moderating this panel.
Yes, you can ask.
And I'm just going to give us a little bit of an overview and then get us
You don't
a
have
little bit of a
You don't have to ask
provocation and then
permission
get
to
us
ask the
started.
question. Just ask the question.
So maybe the right's new name for the left is gay communism. You might call
No.
it their personal specter. Our enemies are already convinced that the working class struggle against capitalist exploitation and domination and the struggle for gender and sexual freedom are the very same thing.
What? Wait. The socialists think that their enemies are convinced that the fight against capitalism is what they're doing. Are you serious? These people completely do not understand who the right is. Bobby, I said you could ask questions, but I also said earlier only relevant questions to the content. So no, we are not doing irrelevant questions to the content. That was let's just listen to that again. Hang on.
The right's new name, give us a little bit of an overview and then get us a little bit of a provocation and then get us started. So maybe the right's new name for the left is gay communism. You might call it their personal specter. Our enemies are already convinced that the working class struggle against capitalist exploitation and domination and the struggle for gender and sexual freedom are the very same thing. We see this in the elite panic over gender ideology, while the Elon Musks and the J.K. Rowlings launder their attachment to race and class hierarchy through the trans panic. We see it in their desperation to take control over who is and isn't called weird. Sometimes it seems the right has a greater grasp of how our struggles are related or the true threat that their unity might pose. Or it seems...
Who is she listening to on the right? Is this woman listening to me? Wouldn't it be... Wouldn't it... Okay, so what this person is saying is the right understands the left better than the left understands it or something like that. And like the only possibility that I can think of is that she's listening to me and she has some impression that what I say is the right-wing stance because I actually understand them when no one else does. Can someone email this person and ask them if they're listening to me? Because all these people know who I am. They really, like, in real life, they know who I am because I infiltrated their event and I really pissed them off. So they absolutely know who I am. Actually, I know this person specifically knows who I am. I bet you anything that's what it is. This is like basically I just got a shout out. No, socialists, most of the people on the right have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I do. Thank you though for the acknowledgement.
Like the left fashions a fight for queer and trans rights as a bonus rather than constitutive parts of our work to change the world. But sometimes we intuit these connections even if we haven't fully theorized them yet. For me, an intuition about the already existing queer movement to abolish the present state of things is strongest when I've looked around at my own tenant union's efforts to take control over our housing, that most basic element of our social reproduction. And I find myself surrounded by our union's two biggest constituencies, the abuelas and the LGBTs.
The queer movement is connected with the tenants' rights movement because social reproduction theory. Okay, everyone in the chat now has a chance to redeem themselves from earlier. What does that mean? The queer rights movement, the queer liberation movement, is connected to the tenants' rights movement, which is connected to the abolition of things, which is connected to social reproduction theory. We can listen to that again.
Already existing queer movement.
Yeah, we need to go back a little bit further. For people who are new, we often rewind and go forward a lot.
Constitutive parts of our work to change the world. But sometimes we intuit these connections even if we haven't fully theorized them yet. For me, an intuition about the already existing queer movement to abolish the present state of things is strongest when I've looked around at my own tenant union's efforts to take control over our housing, that most basic element of our social reproduction. And I find myself surrounded by our union's two biggest constituencies, the abuelas and the LGBTs.
Social reproduction is how capitalism is perpetuated. Well, that's true, but that doesn't answer the question I asked, does it? The question I asked is, how is the queer rights movement connected to the tenants' rights movement, which is connected to social reproduction theory? That is the only question I want people answering. I don't want you to make up a question and then answer that question. I want you to tell me why that person just said the queer rights movement is connected to the tenants' rights movement, which is about where you live, which is connected to social reproduction theory. That is the only question I want to see it being answered. And I want to see a full answer. I do not want to see any buzzwords throw out. Lord help you if you just throw out my buzzwords and talking points after what we all just went through less than half an hour ago. The queer liberation movement, the queer rights movement is connected to the tenants' rights movement, is connected to social reproduction theory. You guys know what all those things mean. Put them together. This type of thing is going to get you put in a timeout, and next time you do it, you're going to get permanently banned. Yep, this is not actually answering the question that I asked. Social reproduction theory means that social systems will reproduce themselves until they are disrupted. Queer rights movement is connected to tenants' rights movement, is connected to social reproduction theory. Why? Please don't be retarded again. Please don't. Please. I am begging you guys to not disappoint me again. I'm being really serious right now. You know all of this. Queer rights is connected to tenants' rights, is connected to social reproduction theory. Nope, postcard, that's not the right answer. You're not even incorporating all the stuff. Listen to the question being asked. Why is queer rights connected to tenants' rights, connected to social reproduction theory? Let's listen to her say it again since no one's giving the right answer.
For queer and trans rights as a bonus rather than constitutive parts of our work to change the world. But sometimes we intuit these connections even if we haven't fully theorized them yet. For me, an intuition about the already existing queer movement to abolish the present state of things is strongest when I've looked around at my own tenant union's efforts to take control over our housing, that most basic element of our social reproduction. And
so
I find
people are saying they don't know what tenant means. She literally explained it in the clip. So that's the third time we've listened to this clip. We'll listen to it again. I do not want to see this as an answer. This is not the correct answer. This is throwing out a buzzword with no... What the fuck does that mean? Do we really fucking need to do this again? What does that mean? Please, I am begging you guys. That doesn't mean anything. The question... Okay. You have 5 minutes to get the answer correct or I'm ending the stream. If this is the game people want to play, then this is the game that we will play. The queer rights movement is connected to the tenants' rights movement, is connected to social reproduction theory. How? You absolutely should know this. There is no universe in which you don't know this. Come on. Let's listen to it again.
Sometimes it seems the right has a greater grasp of how our struggles are related or the true threat that their unity might pose. Or it seems like the left fashions a fight for queer and trans rights as a bonus rather than constitutive parts of our work to change the world. But sometimes we intuit these connections even if we haven't fully theorized them yet. For me, an intuition about the already existing queer movement to abolish the present state of things is strongest when I've looked around at my own tenant union's efforts to take control over our housing, that most basic element of our social reproduction, and I find myself surrounded by our union's two biggest constituencies, the abuelas and the LGBTs.
Socialists believe no one is free until everyone is free, so queer and tenants' rights cannot be liberated from capitalism oppressing them until capitalism is disrupted. That's where social reproduction theory comes in. That's close. That is very close. I think that that's an acceptable enough answer for me to keep the stream going, but I'm still not, I'm not 100% happy. I'm like 85% happy because social reproduction requires a home and queer people, nope, that's nothing, nope. No one said nothing about the family. No one said nothing about the family. No one said nothing about that. Queer and tenants' rights and social reproduction theory are connected through the struggle of abolishing, well, what's another term for hierarchy? You're not wrong, but saying abolishing hierarchy is not the point. You're missing two other categories. What does that have to do with queer rights and what does that have to do with social reproduction theory? You're not listening to the question being asked. Queer and tenants' rights are socialists. Okay, that doesn't actually answer the question. That doesn't answer the question. No, your answer was about 85% there. Your answer was good enough to keep the stream going. I'm just really disappointed again. Queer rights movements attacks private no. 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 Well, queer seeks to abolish capitalism, which means private property, so I see how that's connected to the tenants movement, so I can take control of the house where the family is, well, kind of. What is the ultimate goal of the far left at all times? If this is going to be an all-night thing, guys, you better start sending some super chats right now, I swear to God. What is the ultimate goal of the far left at all times? They are all movements that want to abolish capitalism. The ultimate goal of the far left is always and forever to abolish capitalism. It is all about abolishing capitalism, specifically capitalism. Capitalism is defined as private property ownership, but we don't say that. We say capitalism, and then we clarify that means private property ownership. The goal is always abolishing capitalism. It is always and perpetually about abolishing capitalism. That is not a good answer. It is always abolishing capitalism. They want to abolish private property ownership, which they define as capitalism. All right. The queer rights movements to abolish the state of things means to liberate oneself from capitalism. I don't give a flying fuck. That is not what we are talking about right now. This is not an answer to the question. Queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. The reason the left is concerned with tenants' rights is that tenants are renters. Tenants are technically going against the capitalist system because they do not own the property. The landlord is the bourgeois. The landlord is the private property owner. The tenants are oppressed by the landlords. The tenants' rights movement is fundamentally a movement about abolishing private property because everything around tenants' rights and like squatting laws and things like that, the goal of that is to abolish private property. It's to abolish the ownership of the landlord. Social reproduction theory is about disrupting the social reproduction of capitalism within the nuclear family because they believe that the nuclear family, when they have kids, they raise them with capitalist values that reproduces capitalism. All three of these movements are about abolishing capitalism. That is what people need to understand. There are nuances to each of those things, but they are always and forever about abolishing capitalism. That is all it is. Now, I would like people in the chat to explain back to me what I just said, and we're going to do that as you listen to this clip for the 5th or the 6th time. And while I'm playing this clip for the 5th or the 6th time, I want all of you to explain what the fuck this woman is talking about.
Unity might pose. Or it seems like the left fashions a fight for queer and trans rights as a bonus rather than constitutive parts of our work to change the world. But sometimes we intuit these connections even if we haven't fully theorized them yet. For me, an intuition about the already existing queer movement to abolish the present state of things is strongest when I've looked around at my own tenant union's efforts to take control over our housing, that most basic element of our social reproduction, and I find myself surrounded by our union's 2 biggest constituencies, the abuelas and the LGBTs.
What does that mean? Explain it to me like I am a normal person. Explain back what I literally just explained to you before. If you can't do that, I just don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't know what to say. No, that's none. Okay. I want to see a chat full of people explaining back to me what I just explained to you, so that I know that you listened and that you heard it. That is not what I just said. Not remotely what I just said at all. I'm not happy with the amount of answers that I've seen in the chat, so I'm just going to sit here and wait. I'm not at all happy with the amount of correct answers that I've seen in the chat. So we're going to sit here and wait until I'm either happy with the amount of correct answers that I've seen in the chat, or I'm going to end the stream. I've asked the question 5 or 6 times now. People should know the question by now. I should not have to repeat a question more than once, or perhaps twice for a clarification. If you're not listening to the 5 or 6 times that I previously explained something, that is a you problem, that is not a me problem. Rewind the video and listen again. All right, let's go through some of these answers. Let's see. They're all connected because they're all about abolishing capitalism. Yep. Basically, she's saying queer and tenants' rights go after capitalism in a certain way that social reproduction theory would agree with and support. Not really. Not really. I don't think I said that. Well, you've been around long enough that you should know this, so sit back and listen. They see all as aspects of the same struggle. That's not really explaining anything. She is saying that both queer and tenants are in a struggle against the oppressive force of capitalism. Well, you completely left out social reproduction theory, so that's not even a complete answer. That means that she's talking about her allied groups. Nope, that's completely incorrect. Not descriptive at all. Doesn't answer the question at all. You answered some question. You didn't answer the question I asked. The movement The movement for tenants' rights is all about the ultimate goal of abolishing private property. Well, that leaves out queer rights and social reproduction theory. So why are we continuing to answer questions that are not actually the question that I asked? The exercise is not that you guys make up a question and you answer the question that you made up. The exercise is I ask the question, you listen to the question that I asked, and you answer the question that I asked. What's happening is I am asking a question. You guys are not listening when I ask the question. You are instead inventing a question that I did not ask, and you are answering the question that you invented. This doesn't work for me. This is not what I do not fucking consent. I am the teacher in the class. You are the students in the class. You don't get to make up the fucking question and then answer the made up question and expect to get credit for it because I'm the fucking one asking the questions. That leaves out social reproduction theory. You're not even naming the movement, so I don't even know if you know what we're talking about. They are fighting to take power back from the few. This does not answer the question, Suzanne. I'm sorry. It doesn't answer the question I asked. Queer rights and tenants' rights, with them being renters, are ways socialists go against the oppressive capitalist system, perpetuating it. It's how they can disrupt the social reproduction of it. Yes. Actually, yeah. Reagan, that's a really good answer because you know what you did that I'm impressed by? You said it's how they can disrupt the social reproduction of it. That's what Reagan has. Reagan is the fucking VIP right now. Reagan gets the gold star because Reagan gave a better answer than I gave earlier. And that's how that should work. So thank you, Reagan, for being the only person in the chat that listens to me. I appreciate it. But the connection to queer is that being queer is not about sexuality, but being in opposition to normativity, specifically. Okay, but that's still not an answer to the question I asked. She's talking about different ways we are oppressed by capitalism, how all the different ways of resistance are, yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, that's like the gimme answer. Hey, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. I'll add it to the total in a second. No, you didn't. You worded it perfectly, Reagan. Like, listen, and I know I'm being hard on you guys because you're fucking up tonight, but that was a perfect wording to the answer. Perfect. That was great. Queer and tenants are two examples of folks being oppressed by the capitalist system. Yup. And in order to fully disrupt social reproduction and capitalism, yes! Mario for the win. Reagan and Mario, the only two people in the chat listening to me. Trendolin. Thank you, Trendolin. I appreciate it. See, apparently this is all I need to do to get you guys to super chat. I just need to yell at you over and over and over again. We're into this, and we basically listen to none of the thing. All right, let's continue.
Luckily, there is a recent explosion of thinking and writing alongside queer and trans organizing, which tells us that the history of class struggle is already laced with the gay or queer or trans or gender non-conforming.
You put Jews into the chat when it wasn't remotely part of the question. So do not, like, I literally just unbanned you on Twitter. Do not bring that shit into the chat. If it is not relevant, then you shouldn't be saying it in the chat. You got a 5-minute timeout. You're back now, but I don't want to see that shit again.
Forming reality of the actual working class, and that the future will look a lot like a deeper integration of those projects. As the late Christopher Chitty taught us, the word comrade entered the English language as the word for roommate or bedmate, naming those who lacked resources for privacy and came to share space with strangers, friends, lovers, all bound by the intimacy, proximity, and vulnerability of having to pay for a place to sleep indoors.
I didn't know that. That's the first time I've ever heard that articulated. And we took a whole 3-part class on how to be a good comrade. So the term comrade came into the language because they were roommates and they had to share space. That actually makes a ton of sense, though. I actually kind of want to look into that a little bit more. Hey, see? We're friends again. Go watch Jaws. Thanks for the money, bro. Thanks for the money.
Maybe the word comrade gives away the history of a communist struggle that is already queer, with those jumbled bonds of sex and solidarity as the basic political unit for revolutionary activity. I don't think any of us are quite certain what gay communism names, but I'm going to turn to our panelists now so we can try to begin to answer that question together. So just by way of introduction, I'm going to go down the list. Max Fox is a writer and a founding editor of Pinko magazine.
Pinko!
He edited the 2020 publication of Christopher Chitty's Sexual
Pinko is a queer Marxist periodical.
Hegemony, translated by Hockingham, The Amphitheater of the Dead, and co-wrote Fag Hag with Madeline Lane McKinney. He is a member of Writers Against the War on Gaza. Ariel Arjeno is a writer based in Chicago. Her writing has appeared in Pinko magazine and Texte Kunst. In 2021, Ariel organized the Queer Practices, Queer Embodiment Conference, with George Baracus and Cardana House as part of an ongoing collaboration working towards fostering more explicitly politicized forms of sex education.
Wait, what?
Iman Abda.
Hang on. More specifically politicized forms of sex education? Excuse me, what?
He is a member of Writers Against the War on Gaza. Ariel Arjeno is a writer based in Chicago. Her writing has appeared in Pinko magazine and Texte Kunst. In 2021, Ariel organized the Queer Practices, Queer Embodiment Conference, with George Baracus and Cardana House as part of
Queer Practices, Queer Embodiment Conference. Can someone look that up, please? The Queer Practices, Queer Embodiment Conference.
Member of Writers Against the War on Gaza. Ariel Arjeno is a writer based in Chicago. Her writing has appeared in Pinko magazine and Texte Kunst. In 2021, Ariel organized the Queer Practices, Queer Embodiment Conference, with George Baracus and Cardana House as part of an ongoing collaboration working towards fostering more explicitly politicized forms of sex education. Iman Abdahadi is an academic, organizer, and writer.
You know, it's actually funny you bring that up, Sven, because I was actually thinking about that. That was at the beginning of 2023, so that was a long-ass time ago. But it's funny that you bring this up because I was literally just talking to people about this earlier today. I saw your post about what Dylan Caput wants to do with autistic youth. It proves everything I talk about with my friends. Yeah, if you guys have never been exposed to the autistic sex ed training that we infiltrated at the beginning of 2023 that conservative media refused to cover because they're politically driven shills, check it out. It's on the main page of my YouTube channel. It is the most disturbing thing you'll see ever. And Sven, I appreciate you stopping by. Weird coincidence that I was talking about that with someone else today, though.
In Chicago. She is co-author of Everything for Everyone, an oral history of the New York Commune, 2052 to 2072.
That's the woman who wrote the book with Emmy O'Brien.
Revolutionary sci-fi novel published in 2022 with Common Notions Press. She is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Chicago, where she researches American Muslim communities, and she is a columnist at In These Times magazine, where she writes on Palestinian liberation movements and American politics. I'm like, yeah, to your bios. I just want to start by asking the question, right? Like, what is gay communism? How does it show up in your organizing or your thinking? Or how might it orient you in your work and activity?
Thank you so much, Tracy. And thank you all for coming and to the conference.
Bot, did you look at this website? Hang on, let me show you. You guys got to see this. So that conference that they were talking about, Bot found it. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Well, yeah, that's actually that. Yes, but we were looking for their what? Yes, well, okay. So let me show you. This is the organization, I guess, that does the conference that we were just looking at. Hang on, let me just put this in here so you guys can see. Okay. So this is the Queer Practices Queer Embodiment Conference. Now that was a couple years ago. But they do have some interesting things on there. In the circles I've entered, autism gender is becoming... Oh, no. Thank you, Renan. But no, why? Why is autism gender identity becoming a thing? Remember, guys, I was one of the first people to talk about that from an anti-communist perspective. Fun times. Okay, check this out. This publishing house is like what holds this conference, right? Let's go to their events section. They're literally like next week holding a conference about virtual queer rope, which is like is this can we go? Wait, can we go to this? Wait, is it my birthday? Is it Christmas? Did yelling at you guys for an hour manifest something beautiful? Are we about to be more traumatized than we've ever been in our lives? Holy shit, I need to turn my mic down. I'm too excited about this. Can we go to this? Who wants to go to the Queer Bondage Conference? It's on Zoom. A 5-day... One in the chat if you want to go to the Queer Bondage Conference. 2 in the chat if we should not go to the Queer Bondage Conference. I will sign up for this shit tonight. Oh, no. Thanks, Kenneth. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Hey, thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. Yeah. Uh-huh. Go to resources and check out the Kink is Politico poster. Oh, I will. Hang on, let me just get that up. But I want to look at this first. Okay. We welcome all roles, rigger tops, motto bottoms, switches, etc., all knowledge levels, and all styles to this gathering that aims to bring queer and female identifying practitioners together to celebrate their love for rope and exchange knowledge and experiences. They've got a big lineup of people. We get 5 days of virtual workshops, performances, and demonstrations. Let's see, what time would that... Oh, are you serious? 6 a.m.? Oh, no. All classes except for the Global Rope Jam will be recorded and available for 30 days. Excellent. That's all I needed. That's all I needed was their recordings, and they are available for 30 days. Conference tickets, blah, blah, blah. LGBTQIA+ describes the full spectrum of non-mainstream sexual orientation and/or gender identity, meaning lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, transsexual, non-binary, genderqueer, gender fluid, queer, intersex, asexual, aromantic, and agender. Women describes people who identify themselves as female in that gender category. People who fit in this category can be part of the LGBTQIA+ spectrum or not. We created this category specifically to indicate that we also invite cisgender heterosexual women. I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman. That means I can go too. The word is our own creation, and so it's got the little fucking doohickey above the E. Okay. The word is our own creation and serves as a replacement for wimix, which is now being abused for trans misogynist statements. The little peaky thing in women represents a marker similar to the X in women that emphasizes that womanhood is an intersectional umbrella that holds many different people and experiences and is not biologically predetermined. This is fucking great. I am not LGBTQIA plus and not a woman. Can I still attend? No. Please respect. So I'm already good though. I'm a woman. I'm a woman, I think. It's on Zoom. We will record everything. We don't even have to get up early. Bro. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. All right, let's look at the resources section. See, this is what makes the yelling worth it. I'm just saying. This is you have to exist through the yelling to get to the good stuff, cuz ain't no one else showing you this shit. All right, let's download the poster. So you say your kink is not political, but you practice shibari? I don't know how to say that word. A practice that delivers a technique used by the police. Wait. They're saying if you engage in tying your partner up with rope, you are using a technique used by the police to capture, interrogate, and torture people. But you like to be the master to a slave and play with power hierarchies and labels that are drenched in thousands of years of suffering and death. But you use floggers, whips, and canes. All of them implement. I'm getting a little tingle. I don't mind saying. This is like turning me on. Not really. I'm joking. Disavow, obviously. But maybe not. But, obviously. But you use floggers, whips, and canes. All of them implements that were and still are traditionally used to punish and dehumanize prisoners and slaves. No, Trendlin, we're... Welcome to Socialism Saturday, folks. Well, it's funny because that is actually the correct answer. The reason that queer activists are so into kink is because they think it allows them to act out capitalism in a consensual way. They think it allows them to act out the power hierarchy of capitalism, except everyone has agreed to it. But real kimbaku, I don't know what that word is, needs to come with other things. It's not Eastern. Okay, I don't know what that means. But you love... But you love your sissification so you can play out traditional roles that women had to endure and suffer for hundreds of years. They're talking about men being dressed up as women to humiliate them. To play out this sexually oppressive gender role. But it's hot to do some race play, Nazi play, and engage in traditional 1950s. They're literally saying they play as Nazis for kink? Bro, I just call that an average day with the Groypers. not. This is so bad. This is so bad. This poster is not about kink shaming. It's calling on you to reflect on the fact that kink does not exist in a vacuum. It's a privilege to consensually play with the topics instead of being caught in them without consent. It cannot be separated from politics, history, and lived experiences. Practicing kink is political. At worst, it reenacts. At best, it deconstructs. Oh. Incredible. This is like one of those moments where I find something that confirms what I knew was true, but I didn't have direct evidence that was true. And now the direct evidence I have that it's true is so, this is almost a parody of itself. It's like if someone were going to create a satire of what they think queer Marxism is, it would literally be this poster. And yet it's real. This is real. This is not satire. This is real. Wow. Oh, Trendolin, we're all going together, girl. We're going together. But we need to hit that super chat goal so I can sign up for it, so keep the super chats coming in. I may need someone else to sign up for it, though, so I can keep my name off of it. So I may need help from someone. We can figure that out later. I don't want my name connected to it, because that way they could ruin it for us. What else do they have? That's it. All right, well, that's good enough. Those are two, okay, let's just go back to the stream. I think we've gotten roped into something. Psh, psh. Oh my God. All right, I need a drink. Does anyone else need a drink? I need a drink. Okay, let's go back to this episode. All right, we're only 6 minutes into this episode.
For having us and to our amazing co-panelists. Yeah, I don't have a very direct answer, unfortunately. But to begin, I guess, my main activity that's relevant to talk about is my work putting out Pinko magazine, which is an immense privilege for many reasons, one of which is that I get to publish such brilliant people as these two sitting next to me. And so I'll speak about that a little bit as a way of giving an answer, because that project is somewhat of an attempt to answer that question for myself and for ourselves. So it came together as a project in 2019, around the 50 years since the Stonewall Uprising. So we were trying to assess what half a century of queer liberation struggle had yielded, and what had changed, and what remained. And one of our answers to that sort of initial question was this problematic of gay communism, which was a term that was circulating at the time that didn't seem to have a very particular answer for.
Daniel does so much tweeting about me. He does so much work. He does it all day, every day. I see it. I really appreciate it. And now Daniel is coming in like an absolute fucking king. And he's paying for us to go to the Queer Kink Conference. Daniel, thank you, bro. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You're a champion among men.
Or clear meaning for a lot of the people who are using it. There was this tendency, whether or not it was sort of like politically self-conscious or simply a sort of sociological fact. We noticed, like Tracy noticed, and I'm sure many of you also noticed, that the left is just like quite massively gay or queer or trans, and that's great. And in some ways, it's kind of intuitive. In another way, it like doesn't necessarily track at a conceptual level necessarily. And so we wanted to sort of begin the project of sort of working through what that fact implied about a more sort of abstract level of strategizing and thinking. a lot of people were theorizing quite robustly and really brilliantly on social media around the same time, but we also noticed that there wasn't any sort of central venue to establish a public and continuous conversation that would make any of these brilliant insights coherent socially. And actually, we weren't the only people to notice this. There were at least 2 other projects that started around the same time, one of which was based in Chicago here, called Intern. We were hoping to have one of the representatives on the panel tonight. And another one was called Invert Journal, which was out of London. And we had a kind of similar insight, I guess, about the conjuncture and the necessity for some sort of theorizing. And I note also that we had a kind of, we all were making the same joke with our name, that it was something kind of anachronistic or out of time that we were engaged in. And I think that's something I'll try and pick up on later on. I think that does actually have something to do with what this politics means. But pinko is a sort of archaic slur that doesn't really circulate now, but it meant something like gay or queer or trans, something like a communist at a certain point. I find I have to explain sometimes when I speak to younger audiences, but there you go. So at Pinko, we try to approach the political conjuncture using gay communism as a sort of analytic rather than an identity position or a sort of a self-evident political position from which to speak. We look at it as a kind of a problem to be solved more than something that we can inhabit without any tension or contradiction. And so in particular, that means often paying close attention to situations or zones where the capitalist system of gender comes apart, often indicated by sex panics. And we try and sort of untangle those moments by examining what
the capitalist system of gender, that means gender, or capitalism created gender. They created men and women. That's gender binary.
What are the sort of class forces at play? Why is it failing to reproduce itself through what appears as natural in its sort of regular operation? And I'm going to speak a little bit also, so there is a bit of a lineage to this position. You have to kind of excavate it and put it together a little bit inventively, but you can, you can draw a line with a somewhat dotted line, maybe from early socialists like Edward Carpenter or Magnus Hirschfeld, whose famous Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin was you've seen the image of it burning. That's the sort of Nazi book burning pyre is his library. And Alexander Kollontai, who worked with Hirschfeld on the World League for Sexual Reform. Kollontai was an early Soviet, I can't remember now her title, but she served in the earliest government. And you can even go further back towards the French Revolution. There were these interesting vindications of the rights of sex workers and sodomites to freely dispose of newly liberated royal palaces for their sort of work and pleasure. You could claim that's an early ancestor of this tendency. And then, in the US, you have people like Harry Hay, who was a CPUSA cadre who used Stalin's understanding of a sort of oppressed national minority to guide the theoretical foundations of the Mattachine Society, which is one of the earliest gay rights organizations. And then, of course, you have the gay liberation movement, more sort of visibly connected with anti-imperialist or socialist or communist politics. The GLF, or the Gay Liberation Front, was famously founded the morning after Stonewall, took its name from the North Vietnamese Liberation Front. There are a number of other sort of equally engaged formations, the Third World Gay Liberation Front as well. And then we also have sort of more elaborately theoretical progenitors like Guillaume Kingam or Mario Mieli, whose book Towards a Gay Communism, I think, is a really useful theorization, even if it's a bit unorthodox, like all these contributions to this lineage are, really. Yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead, actually. But, well, what's the time? Should I? I'm good, okay. Yeah, so there is a lineage. You have to kind of go look for it and put it together, which says something about that lineage's sort of effective impact on the present. And there's a constituency with real.
I'm not saying I just registered for that conference, but I just registered for that conference. It's going to be next week. We're going to have a ton of fun. Jennifer is going to be thrilled. I'm not getting up at 6 a.m. There is no universe in which I'm getting up at 6 a.m. But we're going to do the conference. Okay, we have to. It's part of our sacred obligation.
Social presence, but without a sort of obvious way of composing itself politically or gaining an organ for understanding itself as a political unit or political actor. And then there's the sort of like loose collection of publishing activity represented by Pinko and the other projects, which still exist. I've heard rumors of a new one in the Bay, of course, that is trying to knit some of these things together. But to be frank, it doesn't quite represent like a massive social force, and that's okay. I think that to maybe answer the question, of the hour a little bit more directly by indirection, unfortunately, I think that there's actually something to be understood in this limit, in the inexpressibility of this position or this politics, in the way that it appears historically as something contradictory to political representation or political composition or political expression. And it is a maybe a horizon, you could say, that's resistant to gradualist or reformist formulation, and yet its shadow or its absence has effects or has some sort of like detectability in the present. I think there's something meaningful about the fact that the contemporary forms of modern sexuality and gender that we inhabit, that we organize from within, underwent significant upheaval during the transition between two modes of production, from the transition from feudalism to capitalism, threw up these new categories, these new social types that took a while to gain conceptual clarity. It's a kind of funny but also perhaps meaningful fact that the terms homosexual and heterosexual enter any kind of historical record the same year that Marx publishes Capital Volume 1. So these are thoroughly modern capitalist categories, and they require modern sort of self-conscious movements to become politically effective, I think. But to attain what's implied in them, a gay communist sort of like reality or political formation, I think is actually quite hard to express in the present. I think that I think one of the reasons that sex panics are so telling or useful for these moments is that they give away that there's a similar sort of shift that may be underway. If we believe with Marx that the protagonist of history, the proletariat, is constantly and behind our own backs creating the new world amidst the shell of the old, there are moments when it kind of erupts into view, or the present world sort of loses its capacity to hold this new world back. And for reasons I'll get into later, I think sex has a particularly privileged role to play in maintaining.
The socialism conference that we're listening to, Daniel, is always in Chicago.
The naturalized appearance of the social reality, when that falls apart or when that comes into question through the real movement of history that abolishes the present state of things, I think you can see glimmers of a different way.
What do they mean when they say abolish the present state of things? Please. Okay. This is everyone's redemption moment, all right? I know that we all just had a high in that we registered for a sex conference, and now we're coming back down. What does it mean to abolish the present state of things? Because they've said that like 3 times now. Abolish the present state of things. Queer theory wants to abolish the present state of things. Queer activists want to abolish the present state of things. So-called gay communism wants to abolish the present state of things. What does that mean? Please. It's in Germany, but it's virtual. So it's going to be it's all virtual. Yes, they mean to abolish capitalism. Yep. Capitalism is the present state of things. Capitalism is the present state of things. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are all redeemed. You are saved. You are blessed.
That we can live together, reproduce ourselves together, and be together. And I think that, to go back to your citation of this question of weirdness, I think also one of the reasons why this politics or this position is difficult to express in sort of programmatic terms is that communism itself, I think, has to appear amidst capitalist social relations as something absolutely strange, something absolutely unrecognizable that is nevertheless produced by the same logic that tries to hold it back. And I guess I'll stop there.
Thank you for that. With that said, I am now going to do the audacious task of trying to define the current cohort and describe the current cohort of people we have writing now. I'm also going to, I prefer speaking extemporaneously, but I'm going to say some written remarks because I'm going to try and be a little bit extra careful with this today. In this set of preliminary remarks, I want to sketch out some of the tendencies that characterize gay communist thought now, in particular, the milieu that I'm engaged with. Later, I hope to draw on this to gesture towards what those tendencies might mean in terms of a broader political engagement. So who am I talking about? On one hand, a set of writers that I imagine might be familiar to a number of people in this room. In addition to my co-panelists, family abolitionists like Emmy O'Brien, Sophie Lewis, Katie Griffiths, and Jules Joanne Gleason, as well as publications like Pinko, Homintern, and the anthology Transgender Marxism. On the other, politically engaged friends and comrades who are not at all writing for the same audiences and may not be writers at all. The people I see organizing at actions, in cruising rooms and back bars, as well as those trying to create more politically engaged sex educational spaces. That is to say, a varied group of people with a variety of approaches, ideologies, and political commitments. This is, in some respect, a point of continuity with the work of Miele himself, someone who presents an eclectic mix of the literary critical, the psychoanalytic, the Marxological, observations informed by lived experience and personal practice, citing and engaging a surprising breadth of sources. Much of the most recent wave of writing from the cohort of gay communists I'm talking about, both O'Brien's and Lewis's books come to mind here, involves efforts to widen the frame of reference.
So just so we're really clear, the fact that they're referencing Emmy O'Brien and Sophie Lewis and Jules Joanne Gleason and Kay Doyle Griffin, all of whom, by the way, we have watched all of those people on Socialism Saturday. We've actually watched all those people more than once on Socialism Saturday. This is not about gay communism. This is about queer Marxism. And so it kind of seems as though maybe here's what I bet is happening. In response to what the right is doing, they are trying to reframe queer Marxism as gay communism to provide a counterbalance to what the right is doing. It's also just confusing language because, of course, we know it actually has nothing to do with being gay. It has nothing to do with being straight. Queer is a far left political ideology, but this is the code switching that we need to do in our head. When they're saying gay communism, they mean queer Marxism. I thought it might be something different. It's not something different, and we know that based on the people on the panel. Pinko is a queer Marxist magazine. The woman that wrote the book with Emmy O'Brien is a queer Marxist. All the people they just listed are queer Marxists. This is queer Marxism.
And seriously engage and incorporate elements of black feminist thought. I hold that Lewis' Abolish the Family is best read less as a manifesto, despite the title, than as a kind of syllabus and speculative genealogy for an emergent project. Consequently, I think it's better to understand gay communism as less of a particular ideological formation or singular current of thought than as an attention to a specific set of questions and issues, a refusal of sexual liberalism, a politics that understands the production and reproduction of sex as central to the reproduction of capital. There are two distinct but overlapping things.
The reproduction of sex is essential to the reproduction of capital.
I would like to add to this description of the current iteration of gay communist thought. The first is a shared utopianism in imagination, if not in method. When pressed, I think most of those I am talking about would have a certain kind of reticence towards elaborating a strict program, if only because what sexual politics will look like after the revolution, under a different regime of production, is, to some extent, unknowable and inarticulable. Yet, all the same, there is an impulse towards a kind of speculation. To a number of the current cohort of gay communist thinkers, Charles Fourier serves an important influence. I take as emblematic Gleason's and Griffith's description of the anti-dyadic creche in their jointly authored essay, Kinderkommunismus, a self-consciously contradictory vision of how we might live collectively after the family, presented as a critique of the family form. In their own words, they describe their speculative critical gesture, and I quote, "This text serves as a revolutionary speculative proposal. Our end is not to provide a blueprint for future communists, but to deepen materialist analysis of the relationships between the family, gender, and the reproduction of capitalism. We intend this proposal as a positive contribution to the current revival of revolutionary approaches to questions of gender and social reproduction. We write..."
What are they talking about?
To define...
We need to listen to that again, sorry.
The first is a shared utopianism in...
Trendle, well, you didn't have to buy a ticket, Trendle. We were going to watch some of it together. They're going to have their recording, Trendle, and they're going to have their recordings up for 30 days. So we can all enjoy rope time together. But it's good that, Trendle, it's good that you got a ticket, though, in case I get caught. And that way we have yours. It's a backup. It's always important to have backups. Okay, we need to listen to that again because that person was just saying the quiet part out loud. Hang on.
In the frame of reference and seriously engage and incorporate elements of black feminist thought. I hold that Lewis' Abolish the Family is best read less as a manifesto,
I want to know what
title,
text
than
he's talking
as
about.
a kind of syllabus and speculative genealogy for an emergent project. Consequently, I think it's better to understand gay communism as less of a particular ideological formation or singular current of thought than as an attention to a specific set of questions and issues, a refusal of sexual liberalism, a politics that understands the production and reproduction of sex as central to the reproduction of capital. There are two distinct but overlapping things I would like to add to this description of the current iteration of gay communist thought. The first is a shared utopianism in imagination, if not in method. When pressed, I think most of those I am talking about would have a certain kind of reticence towards elaborating a strict program, if only because what sexual politics will look like after the revolution, under a different regime of production, is, to some extent, unknowable and inarticulable. Yet, all the same, there is an impulse towards a kind of speculation. To a number of the current cohort of gay communist thinkers, Charles Fourier serves an important influence. I take as emblematic Gleason's and Griffith's description of the anti-dyadic creche and their jointly authored essay, Communismus, a self-consciously contradictory vision of how we might live collectively after the family, presented as a critique of the family form. In their own words, they describe...
Wait, but what was the name of the publication?
Gleason's and Griffith's description of the anti-dyadic creche and their jointly authored essay, Communismus.
Kinderkonismus? What is that? So can someone try to find the text? This is a challenge for Bot and Reagan and anyone else who wants to participate. We are looking for a text called Kinderkonismus, and it is authored by Jules Joanne Gleason and Kay Doyle Griffin. Kinderkonismus. I think that's what they said, right? Again?
Unknowable and inarticulable. Yet, all the same, there is an impulse towards a kind of speculation. To a number of the current cohort of gay communist thinkers, Charles Fourier serves an important influence. I take as emblematic Gleason's and Griffith's description
Gleason and Griffin. So that's Jules Joanne Gleason and Kay Doyle Griffin.
Of the anti-dyadic creche.
Yo! Ha ha! Found it! Bot and Reagan literally at the exact same time. Found it! Thank you, guys.
And their jointly authored essay, Kinderkommunismus, a self-consciously contradictory vision of how we might live collectively after the family, presented as a critique of the family form. In their own words, they describe their speculative critical gesture. And I quote, "This text serves as a revolutionary speculative proposal. Our end is not to provide a blueprint for future communists, but to deepen materialist analysis of the relationships between the family, gender, and the reproduction of capitalism. We intend this proposal as a positive contribution to the current revival of revolutionary approaches to questions of gender and social reproduction. We write to define the prerequisite form required by any kind of communist drive to succeed in abolishing the current de facto coercion into family relations and the lasting effects of material differentiation within society."
All right, I have the text. It's 24 pages long. It looks like a piece of like epic propaganda. We're going to read this. So I don't want we are going to get into this. We're not going to do it tonight, but we are going to get into this at some point amongst our queer conferencing this week.
This is a utopian imagination that is not tied to a utopian socialist fantasy about the possibility of ushering in a new world through creating a series of communes and intentional communities. Instead, it uses speculation as a way to clear ground, to find sites of resistance, to be able to show up to struggle with concepts and visions in hand, however much they will necessarily need to shift. It is at this point one might ask, what about this project is particularly gay? And it's here that I'd like to round the description of gay communist thought with another observation. It takes an interest in minor practices. There is nothing necessarily intrinsically liberatory about gay desire. The gay in gay communism indexes something different, something strange and far more contingent and reliant on gay identity's particular relationship to capitalism.
It's always about
We
capitalism.
will not fuck our way to the revolution. It's unfortunate, but
Many have tried.
for a very long time, and here we are.
I actually kind of love that. We will not fuck our way to the revolution. I mean, but they are acknowledging. I mean, listen, we talked earlier about how they're probably talking about queer Marxism, and everything they've talked to about this point is about queer Marxism. And now they're trying to get a little bit of what I think it was very telling that he said, "What's gay about this?" They were talking about queer Marxism for the first 20 minutes of the session, and then they go, "So what's even gay about this?" That right there is an indicator that queer Marxism and gay communism, queer and gay are not the same thing. But he seems to be carving out a role. He seems to be saying gay communism is queer because it deals with the minority experience or something like that. That seems to be where he's going. But I think the bigger point, as always, is that this has nothing to do with being gay. It has to do with abolishing capitalism. They've said it repeatedly.
Right? But gay desire provides potential lines of flight forms of gathering and collaboration that can work against capitalist norms.
Oh, really?
From the cross-class intimacies described so well by Christopher Chitty and Samuel Delaney, to trans forms of self and communal fashioning, the gay in gay communism describes an attack on the family and on the stifling production of sex and gender that forecloses on happiness.
The gay in gay communism represents an attack on the family. Well, that couldn't be any more clear. Again.
Capitalism. Intrinsically liberatory, minor, particularly gay.
I'm going to go back a little bit.
Instead, it uses speculation as a way to clear ground, to find sites of resistance, to be able to show up to struggle with concepts and visions in hand, however much they will necessarily need to shift. It is at this point one might ask, what about this project is particularly gay? And it's here that I'd like to round the description of gay communist thought with another observation. It takes an interest in minor practices. There is nothing necessarily intrinsically liberatory about gay desire. The gay in gay communism indexes something different, something strange and far more contingent and reliant on gay identity's particular relationship to capitalism. We will not fuck our way to the revolution. It's unfortunate, but...
Many have tried.
For a very long time, and here we are, right? But gay desire provides potential lines of flight, forms of gathering and collaboration that can work against capitalist norms.
Bing.
From the cross-class intimacies described so well by Christopher Chitty and Samuel Delaney, to trans forms of self and communal.
Yes, this is exactly right. Gay communism is not about being gay. It's about being a communist that enjoys sex with certain types of people. But it's really about being communist. But it's not about being gay. It's about being a communist.
Fashioning. The gay in gay communism describes an attack on the family and on the stifling production of sex and gender that forecloses on happier ways of relating.
There it is. There it is right there. There it is right there. This is about ways of relating. Okay, listen again.
From the cross-class intimacies described so well by Christopher Chitty and Samuel Delaney, to trans forms of self and communal fashioning, the gay in gay communism describes an attack on the family and on the stifling production of sex and gender that forecloses on happier ways of relating.
The gay in gay communism describes attacks on the family, on the production of and on the stifling production of gender by capitalism, and is ultimately about different ways of relating outside the oppressive system of capitalism.
Against capitalist norms. From the cross-class intimacies described so well by Christopher Chitty and Samuel Delaney, to trans forms of self and communal fashioning, the gay in gay communism describes an attack on the family and on the stifling production of sex and gender that forecloses on happier ways of relating.
Bing. Stunning and brave. Stunning and brave snaps.
I have to admit, I feel somewhat intimidated to follow these two because they have such erudite knowledge of this history and these movements. You know, what we had discussed was that I would bring in the sort of revolutionary horizon, or this idea of a future, what a gay communist future might look like. And I think, you know, especially the last question that you posed, Ariel, like about what makes it gay, right? I think will be.
Guys. The Queer Conference has a Discord, and they've just sent me a link to the Discord.
Be interesting, and I'll launch here from thinking about, so in our book Everything for Everyone, Emmy O'Brien and I offer a vision of a transition out of the state and the market as the sort of primary forms of social organization, of transition out of capitalism effectively. And in our book is fundamentally a sort of a family abolitionist book, and certainly a gay communist book. And in our world, capitalism and the state collapse together due to an increasing set of climate and market crises. So we know that capitalism has within it, a tendency towards crisis. We also know that crises have become more frequent and sharper in their effects. They're also tied and sort of mutually constitutive with climate crises, right? So
capitalism is
all
about
of
the
this
climate
weighs
crisis.
heavily on.
You don't say.
Sorry, I just couldn't breathe for a second. All of this weighs heavily on the sort of.
Fellium, you missed it. You arrived late. And while you were late, we found something wonderful and beautiful that we will be exploring next week. But you can either wait for it to be a surprise, or you can ask other people in the chat and they can explain what we found when you were late. All right?
Of the state, right? The state manages the affairs, and to put it in classic Marxist terms, manages the affairs of the bourgeoisie, but it basically helps kind of bolster the system of capitalism. It maintains it, it cooperates with it, and effectively these increasing crises in our book make it harder and harder for the state to offer enough stability to enough people to have the sort of consent for governance, but also that it stretches its sort of resources to govern. Of course, it's very terrifying that the state, as we've seen, can both govern, surveil, and kill much more efficiently than it used to. And I think that's something, just as a tangent, that we need to think about in our theorizing of revolutionary futures. But what we sort of propose is that the weight of these crises as they proliferate become too much kind of.
Hang on. Carlin, did you get that anarchist library text I sent from Jules Gleason, the call for gender abolition, the material? I think I did, Reagan. I think I did. I didn't look at it. I put it on the list of many things I have to look at, but yes, I think I did. Thank you for reminding me. I just made a note.
The state, and so the state as a social institution begins to buckle just as the market is also buckling. And so we our book proposes a global revolution, and the process begins in places where the state is the weakest.
Thank you. I didn't
so
see that.
In the Levant, we imagine Palestine.
I thought you were
as one
referring
of
to
the,
something else. Okay, thank you.
First places to liberate. And Central America as well. So in this moment of global crises, states are also unable to bolster each other, right? So because there are so many states in crisis, you can't have states kind of stepping in and filling
Got
in.
it. Thank you.
So what happens is there's mass uprisings as people realize that as enough people realize that the market cannot meet their needs, and there's no social contract between them and the state, right? So in New York, where our book is focused, one of the main kind of catalyzing events for the revolution is a food riot, led by trans sex workers, right? So who see that people are starving, right? And finally riot to sort of seize the food that has been held by the army and the police. So during these uprisings, people band together to meet their own needs. And they form small communes of a few hundred to a few thousand people that effectively come to replace these units of social organization. They come to coordinate housing, food, and social reproduction. So slowly, a coordinated world economy reemerges as more and more technologies and apparatus. Is it apparatuses or apparati? This is one of those things that I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about. I'm like, of the old world. So we don't abandon all of the technology and of the old world, but rather it's sort of reappropriated into the new system, in a system that is organized not around the logic of profit, but as one of our reviewers wrote, I think in Public Books, around a logic of care, right? So that the revolution's kind of primary motive is care. So, the commodity form is abolished. So this is very much a family abolitionist vision in that we see the family cease to function as an economic unit, right? Right now in our current system, the family is an economic unit. Who your parents are, I mean, as a, one of the hats I wear is like as a sociologist and kind of a demographer even, right? We know that we can predict.
The person speaking right now is a professor at the University of Chicago.
80% of people's life outcomes by simply knowing their parents' socioeconomic status, right? This in a society whose myth of itself is all about class mobility. It's somewhat laughable, but so when the family ceases to function as an economic unit, and instead you have the commune as the primary economic unit. So what that means, right, is that
the family ceases to function as the primary economic unit, and instead you have the commune functioning as the primary economic unit. That means the commune effectively turns into the family of choice, the family that is not based on biological kinship, but is based upon being a part of this larger social system. What that also means is that the resources that you have access to are not directly dependent on who are your mother and your father, right? Because you have access to, everyone in the commune has access to the resources of everyone else in the commune. So this is what they mean. This is one example. And we are going to read this book at some point. I actually really do want to read this book. We have so many things we need to read. But but they're saying that this is the one of the alternatives to the nuclear family. And the book that she wrote is basically describing, they basically did this for people who don't know what this book is. It's called Everything to Everyone. And it is like a futurist dystopian book where they talk about the world after capitalism when it's become a commune, that basically New York City has become a commune because capitalism failed or whatever. And so this book is actually really interesting, and I really do want to read it because this is one of their visions for what the future Marxist utopia looks like.
Your access to food, your access to shelter, your access to clothing has absolutely nothing to do with who you're sleeping with, who your biological parents are, who has cared for you as a small child. You can kind of partner with you can do all kinds of things. And so what's interesting is that what we found, even as we were writing the book, is that it lent itself to a diversity of family forms, right? We lead such cookie cutter lives under capitalism, and those of us who are queer know how incredibly difficult it is, even under relatively privileged circumstances in terms of like legal rights. I mean, waning and under attack, certainly, right? But compared to many places, even under those circumstances, how difficult it is to break out of these cookie cutter scripts, right, of heteronormativity or compulsory heterosexuality. So what we found even just in writing it, right?
Appreciate you, Kino. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Right? If you've ever written fiction, you sort of, the world kind of opens itself to you, right? Is how diverse people's kinship forms can be. So we come to use the word family as a verb in the book, right? That people family with certain people, right? That some people just like to live alone, right? Some people, but none of this matters, right, for your core survival. And I keep emphasizing that because it is so distinct from how we live. It is like fundamentally different from how we live. The other thing, and this is, I think, where the book, the book is about 2 years old now, and this is that even in leftist spaces, this is one of the concepts that people had a hard time grasping, that childcare, like food and shelter, is also communized in this system. So
no parental rights.
It is certainly the case that a person could bear children and decide that they want to be the person who hangs out with them every day. But they don't have to, and it's not necessarily the norm, right? So in this system, we also imagine technology moving in the direction that it is, such that anyone can gestate, that different bodies can gestate as well.
Anyone can gestate, that different bodies can gestate as well. We've been talking about this in the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. I have published multiple instances on the Substack where socialists are talking about decoupling gender from reproduction. They want everyone to be able to give birth or to have babies just born in bags entirely. That's what they mean.
Which was a way to kind of open up gender in a particular way. But that the acts of gestating, the acts of bearing children, the acts of caring for children were not necessarily in one kind of escalator package of parenthood that is then tied to material benefits, right? Again, everyone's material benefits are taken care of by the commune. But that, you know, you have a creche, right, in your commune, and you can, and you have all these people who are excited to do the different parts of this work, and a sort of recognition that children have different needs and forms. And so you see the characters in the novel kind of play with that, right? Move in and out of different partnerships, sometimes live with romantic partners, sometimes not, sometimes live with parents, sometimes not, etc. So really moving away from this ownership model of parenthood that we see in our current society.
The ownership model of parenthood. What that means is parental rights are a form of private property ownership. When you have parental rights, that means you literally, quote unquote, own your children. Communists want to abolish all private property. That includes parental rights. Therefore, as they're describing, children are not owned, but reared by everyone in the commune because they have queered the nuclear family. People have questions about that? Let me know in the chat.
And this naturally, and to return to Ariel's question, right, of like what makes this gay, right, is like that this is a totally different, this changes the question of sexuality, right, very fundamentally. Very few people in our book, and I don't think we even really necessarily thought about it, but just as a kind of natural consequence of these material conditions that we laid out, very few people, no one in our book is like, I'm queer, right? Because everyone is both queer and not queer, right? Like there's not the same need for identity categories that we have in the current system. And I want
There's not the same need for identity categories as we have in our current system. If you're doing the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, one of the things you are going to learn in upcoming readings is that the eventual goal of queer theory and gender ideology is the elimination of all categories. Of all categories. So you have to think of like the categorization of things as like a transitionary step. All right? Queer Marxists already object to the gender binary. Those are the socially constructed categories of men and women. That's why they created the third category of non-binary. Okay, non-binary means no binary, no men, no women, non-binary. However, when you get into the more advanced gender nihilist readings, what they say is the existence of non-binary as a category is in it of itself a reinforcement of capitalism, because if you have categories, then you are inherently going to have hierarchies. Hierarchies will always exist as long as categories exist. So the only way to create equity, which is the leveling of the hierarchy, is to eliminate all categories to include non-binary. So we're talking about a world in which there is no categorization around gender. There is no categorization around sexuality. There would be no categorization when we got in regards to race, because they also believe that race is a social construct. There would be no categorization in regards to anything, because categorization inherently creates oppressive hierarchies. That's more of an advanced concept. So if you don't understand that right away, that's okay. It took me some time to wrap my head around that too when I first started listening to gender nihilism, which is a whole wacky world that we will be getting into in the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. But if you have questions, I can try to explain it and extrapolate it a little bit more. Let's just listen to that again.
Because everyone is both queer and not queer, right? Like there's not the same need for identity categories that we have in the current system. And I want to say that, saying that I'm not someone who believes that we, I think it's very important to have prefigured, like I think prefiguration is interesting and important in certain cases, but I don't think it is the case that we are somehow oppressing ourselves by taking on identities that capitalism necessitates in order for us to, seek legal rights or to mobilize with.
Capitalism necessitates the taking on of identities in order to exist in the oppressive system. Would a world without categories be a world where nothing is prescriptive but everything is descriptive? For example, I would say, I would like to participate in gains today rather than gay. I don't know the answer to that, if I'm honest about it. I really don't know. But maybe. I don't know. An easy way to conceptualize what Dr. K is saying is to think of how people dressed in Demolition Man, drab, mostly gray, unisex. Well, an even better example, Vince, is how people dressed in the movie version of 1984, which I actually thought was a reasonably good adaptation. But what did the party members wear in 1984? They all wore the same coveralls. Men and women all wore the same coveralls, and the only people who had a different coverall were the inner party members, and it wasn't even a different coverall, it was just a different color. So they all wore coveralls. There was no gendered clothing. There wasn't supposed to even be sex. They were trying to eliminate sex entirely. They were trying to eliminate the orgasm. They were trying to have all children born via art. Like, George Orwell tapped into something, man. I swear to God, George Orwell was like a prophet. Is that like a where does this word come from? Sarah, do you know? Is it Jewish? Is it Jewish? What does anyone know the origin of this word?
Each other or to theorize our own condition, right? Like, I don't think that we are then the agents of our own oppression, but I think in imagining liberated horizons, we don't have to maintain those same tools, right? We don't have to mistake those means for ends, For me, the imagination of a liberated horizon is one in which some of these identity tools fall away. Maybe they don't fall away overnight. Maybe some of them come back as like the liberated future presents new things, right, to struggle over. But yeah, so I wanted to make that very clear. So yeah, so this is the sort of future that we lay out, right? It's one, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Yeah, so I just want to take just a second to just kind of zoom out and say that.
Okay, so it's not Jewish, it's British English. Okay, it's British. That's what I wanted to know. A nursery where babies and young children are cared for during the workday. So it's like daycare.
I think in general, we have to keep our eyes on a revolutionary horizon while working within the realities of the reactionary times that we live in. And I think that's a struggle in every kind of dimension of the left. I'll stop there, actually. Sorry for the inelegant ending. This is also my third panel of the day, and if you've actually been to all three, I'm so sorry that you had to see this much of me. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Thank you for that. And I'm giving our panelists the 10-minute warning until we have to, until we want to not have to invite everyone else in the room to ask questions and engage with us. So lightning rounds of the next ones. And maybe I'll squish 2 and 3. How do we feel about that? Like late breaking decision. And that is what would a gay communist program look like? How is gay communism different than sexual liberation? And what would that political position entail in terms of its demands. I think that they actually work in concert, if you like.
Not it.
I'm saying I'm happy to talk about this.
Yeah, it came from your talk.
Yeah, it did. So I guess smushing these things together. I have a very different conception of what sexuality is than a lot of the people that talk a lot about sexual liberation.
Okay, what is it?
And I think reading I reread Miele and kind of engaged really deeply for the first time in preparation for this talk. And one of the things that really kind of shocked me reading him was just this surprise that how he seems to occupy a really different world than I do in a lot of respects. And I think like in some ways, people working now sort of need to deal with the legacy that we have of like Reich and Marcuse and certain ideas around sexual liberation. But I want to say like very clearly that like I don't think the primary problem, like following Foucault, the primary problem around sex is sexual repression, right? I don't understand sex as this fundamentally sexual desire or desire in general as the universal solvent for all problems, all things, and social relations, right? I don't think like the prime communist statement is I'm entering the war on desire on the side of desire. And there are a lot of people where that's kind of like what their gay Marxist sexual politics was summed up to be. And what's really interesting, I think you see in Oakham.
So it's not about sex
Miele,
like James Lindsay says?
the beginning
Oh,
of this
no.
sort of like realization that like, oh, there are people that are like who are starting to feel the effects of winning some of the goals of sexual liberation. There are ways in which that project turned out to actually be kind of successful in some respects. It's not an even thing around the world, right? There are lots of oppression that people are under, but also, beginning to see the inklings of what a world post-sexual, sexual liberation looked like, began to show that, like, actually, this is not solving the problems that we have. And turns out,
no kidding,
the project of sexual liberation led to kind of these intensified forms of extraction and intensified forms of control. And the impulse I have here that I'm not going to follow is to maybe like go on some extended comments on like Miele's use of Kamat and Deleuze and like talk about like, formal subsumption and real subsumption, and we're gonna put that all to the side, right? Other than to say that when we think about the infrastructures that we use to like interact and exist as like sexual beings, right? We are engaging with things that are still technologies of control. And like Grindr is a really good example of this, right? Here's this thing that is facilitating gay sex, facilitating gay desire, that I think actually has some really complicated political implications. So that's the first of like, why is this not like about like sex liberation, right? Why is this a different idea? The second part of this is, what was the second part of this?
Like what would the like gay communist political program might be?
Yeah, what does a gay communist political program look like? And I think when we start stepping away from the sort of like sex liberation angle, like things become a little bit more clear because it lets us start to articulate things maybe in more recognizable communist terms. So I have like a few very practical ideas of what that looks like. So the first is like, we need public places where people can have sex.
What?
Right? And
not on my bingo card. I didn't see that coming. That surprised me. There's not There's not many things in socialism that surprise me anymore. All right. Continue. You have my attention.
People who do not have access to certain kinds of housing are not able to have sex at all.
Oh my God. This is such a communist argument. They're saying, if you're homeless, you don't have any place to have sex, so we need to make having sex in public available for people who don't have housing because they are oppressed by the capitalist system. Again.
Public places, a few very practical ideas of what that looks like. So the first is like, we need public places where people can have sex, right? And, you know, people who do not have access to certain kinds of housing are not able to have sex at all, right? There are huge amounts of populations that are incarcerated, both in prisons and in mental institutions, that have no
and mental
access
institutions
to any kind of sexual autonomy, that are very harshly punished for that. So that becomes a really recognizable thing, right? Along with a bunch of other communist considerations around like being able to find the means to survive and have community and care and the ability to socially reproduce yourself, right? To reproduce yourself in any capacity, right? Those are like intrinsically sexual demands that we're making in some capacity. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, you know, one of my favorite, like, beloved enemies is Paul Preciado. And there's this moment in the Countersexual Manifesto where Paul Preciado proposes this idea called somatic communism.
Oh no.
And like, I think the somatic turn is a disaster. That's a separate conversation. But in his idea of somatic communism, for him it involves like making copyleft or like open source all the codes of gender. And in that he includes like physical habitus, right? The kinds of things people are learning in drag workshops, how to put on makeup, how to express yourself in gendered ways, right? And also like literal hormones. And he's like, the second we make these things like copyleft and open to everyone, boom, somatic communism.
Oh my God.
And you know, there's a way in which I think a lot of people that are
This is out of the playbook of Jules Joey Gleason. I know exactly where he's getting this. I documented this on the Substack years ago. Jules Joey Gleason is a professor at Johns Hopkins University that literally advocates for DIY trans hormones. I have Jules Joey Gleason on video at Lewis and Clark College giving a lecture to college students, encouraging them to use DIY trans hormones without having to go to a doctor. And Jules Joey Gleason says, well, you don't even need to go to a doctor because most doctors were never trained in trans hormones and stuff. So you can just figure it out on your own and administer them on your own. That's where this comes from. He's basically saying, if we make trans hormones available to everyone, then everyone will be trans. This is why you guys sit through my yelling. Because no one else is showing you this. You know it. I know it. This is for the hardcore right here. Literally.
Sex libertarians, are libertarians, right? A lot of people's sex politics are like anarcho-capitalist at best. And I'm sitting here being like, how do we think about getting control for everyone of the means of the production of gender and sex and reproduction of these things. And that involves, you know, a bunch of things, but on a really basic level, creating counter institutions outside of the family that can provide a lot of the education and support that the family provides. So a sex educational project that is not just teaching people facts about their body, but is teaching people the kinds of things that are necessary to know about how to engage each other interpersonally, about how to engage with the existing structures of sex and expectations around that people can learn outside the home. So, you know, there's a way in which I think it's not a horizon, but like it's a really good thing to have sex education happening outside of the home and in schools. And even something that simple, that basic, is actually a small part of what a kind of a broader gay communist project might look like.
Does anyone else want to answer the same question?
give it a try.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, for lightning round, I'm sorry, I am going to try and talk about formal and real subsumption, so excuse me. Just kidding. I do think that, I was saying earlier that I think that one of the problems of this political concept or this movement is its unprogrammatization ability or whatever, which is that it's very hard to articulate what exactly a list of demands would be for this position or for this state of affairs, let's say. And one of the reasons, to answer the other part of the question about sexual liberation, why it's different, there in the historical sexual liberation movement, there were a number of quite
Hey, thanks, Sadie. I appreciate
coherent
it.
and even reasonable and sometimes fanciful demands. If you go back to the program of the World Congress for Sexual Reform that Kollontai and Hirschfeld worked on, it's all.
I know who Hirschfeld is.
It's things that people are still kind of struggling
Hirschfeld
around
had
today,
his books
including
burned.
sex education, right to abortion, decriminalization of sex work and homosexuality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the sort of queer gay liberation moment, people took it a slightly more, let's say, ambitious direction, and they phrased it a little bit more combatively. So in the Third World Gay Liberation Front 16-point platform, their first demand is the right to be gay anytime, any place. So that would be sort of lifting of any kind of legal restrictions on behavior. And then the second one is the right to change your sex anytime, any place, and for the state to provide this. I think this is still a reasonable demand, I suppose. That's
wow.
Certainly not easily accessible, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a revolutionary horizon either. Okay, you're all going to watch me take a leap here. I'm going to try and think right now about what one such demand would be. It has a lot to do with sort of communizing or decommodifying the infrastructure for reproducing our lives together, social reproduction, so housing, healthcare, food, etc., power. But I'm not going to go into a fully shooting with Firestone direction, but I think the sort of the collective and disalienated production of human beings together as sorry, what is the way to put it? Under conscious social control, as opposed to now in the present under capitalist social relations, where this is mediated by the value form, by the family, by privation, by violence, geography, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This would be a collective project that takes the production of human beings, human capacities, as something accessible to social deliberation and activity. Presumably, in such a world, it wouldn't fall prey to the terrifying implications of that kind of control in the present. But I think that would be the kind of type of demand that such a politics would put forth.
Oh man, I wish we could listen to the Q&A of this. This is a great session, honestly.
We just have one more question in 5 minutes, so that seems great. If you want to, and that is probably the occasion of the remarks that I gave earlier in the beginning. The question of why is the right so obsessed with gay communism?
They're not. They don't even know it exists.
What threat do they?
Again, this person is listening to me. I promise you, there is literally no one on the right that knows any of this exists. I am the only person along with my audience that even knows that this stuff exists. So I promise you this person is listening to me. Hi. Do they have their name? Who was the moderator? It doesn't say who the moderator was. I'll have to go back and find that.
Think that it names, like, why is it so powerful to their imaginary? What are they doing with it? What is their obsession?
I mean, who knows what these people are thinking? But I think that I think it really speaks to how fundamental, right? Like the role of, like, first of all, I think the fear of communism, right? Like that's very familiar, right? And it's, you know, it's a fear of the disillusion of, you know, the sort of the fall of this whole this whole thing, this whole system, right?
Yeah, I'm a socialist influencer.
And its
Totally
attendant
true.
kind of division of people.
Listen, I have to say this. At least the left respects the work I'm doing. The right doesn't respect the work I'm doing, but at least the left respects it, and they fear me on some level. An entire presentation framed as a response to me, because again, like I really don't know who else on the right is talking about this.
Into the worthy and the unworthy, right? The those with merit who deserve life and property and rights, right? And everyone else who didn't quite make it because they weren't good enough, right? Like I think there is a sort of like ideological commitment to that on the right, to that version of the world that is threatened by a sort of communist future. And I think we can see that in the, like, when you look at the kind of micro, once again putting on my sociology hat, when you look at the kind of micro realities of what some of these far right folks, at least in the US, think, right, in terms of like polling. It's very interesting because sometimes when you present them with like concrete like material gains, they're actually for it, right? But it's in some ways the symbolism carries so much weight for them, and I think that the communism of it all speaks to the intense way in which this kind of like capitalist patriarchal white supremacist version of the world is very much implicated with gender, right, and with sexuality, and like with the two things as sort of.
Yes, social reproduction theory means that social systems will reproduce themselves until they are disrupted. No one ever said that was just about the capitalist system. It's about all social systems. So if communists have children, and they do, and they raise those children with communist values, then those children will reproduce communist values. The problem is, the reason they apply social reproduction theory to the nuclear family is because in the average nuclear family, the family raises the children with capitalist values. And so therefore, the nuclear family raises children with capitalist values because the nuclear family is the privatized unit of the economy. Okay? So it's the same thing. All social reproduction theory is social systems will reproduce themselves until they're disrupted. If you raise your children outside of the nuclear family and you do it at a large enough scale, that means you are reproducing a society that is separate from the capitalist society. Hey, thanks, Reagan. Tracy Rosenthal. Tracy. I'm pretty sure I know who that is.
Like that version of the world requires heterosexuality in part because it requires women's work, right? Like it requires women to do the work of social and moral reproduction. So in my work, in my sociological work, I think a lot about the ways that the moral boundaries of a community function around what it is that women do with their bodies, right? And around sexuality, right? So around what like women do with their bodies, but as a result of that, who women are, right? How we sort of like how people orbit around this idea of femininity and, you know, and sort of, and all of that gets kind of like tied in together. And when you kind of peel back these layers, it's about fundamentally like what version of the future feels palatable and understandable and moral. And so I think that this obsession, right, it's like all of that is so wrapped up together, and that obsession is just such a great example of that. The problem is that the liberal kind of world order that we live in, and especially the last kind of,
they're not liberals?
I don't know, 40, 50 years of kind of denuding our liberation movements, right? And taming them and turning them into these kind of liberal silos, right? Where it's like, and there's issue 1 here, and issue 2 here, and issue 3 here. And are you with this issue or this issue or this issue, right? And they're all so separate, and we're supposed to like, you know, box them up and then put them into a nice policy brief and then, you know, go. And listen, I am a pragmatist, like I'm not mad at the people who do that, not because that's where we are right now, right, as a society. I'm not actually digging at those people, but I'm saying that it's different to buy into that, right? And the analytical framework that it implies, which is one in which all of these are sectioned off. And I see it even in the way that I'm talking to you right now, right? I have a hesitation around saying women because I'm like, oh, I want to be clear that I also mean this and that, and you know. But actually, the reality, the like actual lived reality, and I think this obsession really highlights that, is that it's actually all like one fear that has different layers and it has different parts to it, and we can unpeel it and we can look at it from this angle and look at it from this angle, and that can be analytically useful. But it's actually kind of all wrapped up into one version of the future in which we don't live under like the kind of the in which the form, right, the ideal type of life is a patriarchal, heterosexual, white supremacist, capitalist one, right? And so I think it's a lot to like grapple with theoretically, but I think ultimately, in some ways, the right does us a favor by lumping this all together, right? Because it's sort of a reminder of the interconnectedness of all of this. Thank you for following me on that thought journey. Yeah.
That it? Listen, I think that's enough for tonight. I think that's enough. I think that's enough for tonight. Like, I always think we're going to do more sessions than we are, because it's just like, first of all, I yelled for a little while. I had to work out some feelings. Congratulations to everyone who made it through the yelling. You guys deserved it, because you need to do better, and you need to be encouraged to do better. And I don't know any other way to get you to do better than to yell at you and to threaten to end the stream. But you know what? We made it through. We found a queer bondage conference that we're going to do next week. It's going to be great. Who's ready for the queer bondage conference? 5 days worth of queer bondage. You're welcome. In order to enjoy the queer bondage conference, what you need to do is to you need to head over to my Substack. That is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com, because you need to be a supporter in order to enjoy the queer bondage conference. Now, if you are here is who's going to get access to the queer bondage conference, okay? Because this is a supporter only perk. That's the deal with SpyStream. It is a supporter perk. You need to be a supporter on my Substack, on my locals, a Twitter subscriber, or a YouTube channel member, okay? So one of those 4 things. Substack, this one specifically, carlin.substack.com. It is exclusive to that one, not the other ones. Locals, Twitter subscriber, or YouTube channel member, and you will all get access to the queer bondage conference. Now, I don't think we're going to watch it live because time zones, but thankfully for us, they are recording it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a spy stream a little bit later in the day where we're going to watch the Queer Bondage Conference, okay? So it's not going to be an early morning thing. I'm not going to make everyone suffer through that live. I'm not going to suffer through that live. We will do that either earlier in the day or later at night. We will figure out some schedule. I do have the schedule of presentations, and it is it's something. And so we will do that. And we're not going to do just exclusive we're going to figure out the schedule for it. I don't have this all figured out yet, okay? All I do know is that if you want to join us for that, sign up as a supporter on the Substack, support the work I'm doing. You get access to a variety of perks. The perks that you get access to include the supporter Discord. On Sundays, we do movie night in the supporter Discord. Sundays and Monday nights, we do movies in the supporter Discord. And so tomorrow we are watching Ghost, and on Monday we're watching Fault in Our Stars. Yes, it will be streamed, Trendlin. It's just that it'll be a supporter only thing. So I'm going to send out the details on my Substack. I will be posting on all the platforms. Oh, Patreon too. You can support on Patreon. That's another platform that gets it. But I basically don't even use Patreon really that much. But you can get it on Patreon if you want to. So we will be streaming it though. But if you want to join us for movie night either tomorrow or Monday, we're watching Ghost tomorrow at 8 p.m. We are watching The Fault in Our Stars on Monday at 9 p.m. It is Romance Movie Month. It's February. It is what it is. You also get access to a lot of things on the Substack, to include the Inner Circle podcast, to include a 10% off discount code in the Unwoke Art Store, and all that good stuff. And I really do appreciate it. And as a reminder, guys, we do have a special going on in the Unwoke Art Store. It is a limited edition. You can get 25% off this design until tomorrow at midnight. Then it'll be up in the store for the rest of the month. So we do have the Abolish Public Schools design up in the store right now. And so pick up the design if you feel like it. We've also got a lot of other great designs. This is your last chance to get the Donald Trump Valentine's Day design. So that's going to be leaving the store on Monday because it's almost Valentine's Day. So that's the way it goes. I actually just got my Be an Outcast t-shirt yesterday. It looks awesome. I got this Red Menace Collective one. I got both of these. I actually like all my merch. Like I almost exclusively wear my own merch, just so you guys know. My merch is awesome. It is the best. I've got so many great designs. I got this Communism Kills Creativity design. That's a great one. I've got basically almost all of these. Not all of them yet, but I am working on it. And you can pick up your favorite anti-communist designs in the Unwoke Art Store. And of course, all purchases do support the work I'm doing, which I appreciate. The Zodiac wheel is in my kitchen. All right, so I'm not bringing it upstairs now. I didn't mean to do that. There it is. That wasn't the right button. No, it's in the kitchen for right now, so I'm not going to reveal it now. But maybe this week I will post a picture. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, guys. Good night. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you tomorrow for movie night. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.